is, I gotta check my notes, episode 17, August 6, 2014. Morgan is on assignment, so she wasn't able to join me again, but she does send her regrets, and she will hopefully see you next time with a Megaphone a Minute. My name is Sarah, and I'm Swensty on Ravelry. I wanted to say welcome to new viewers, of course, and welcome to returning viewers. Seems to be the podcaster mantra. I also wanted to thank K-Girl Knits for introducing herself on the boards. I really wanted to thank her because hopefully if you're in the Ravelry group, you've gone and read that she is possibly a descendant of the man from Snowy River. I mean, hold the phone. And if you haven't seen Man from Snowy River, then the next rainy Saturday or Sunday, or stormy night, beverage of choice, knitting is optional because you'll want to watch. Man from Snowy River, you get to meet Clancy, Jim Craig, and Jessica, and you will get to fall in love with this great Walt Disney film. Spoiler alert for those of us that are sensitive to animals, the first scene, which of course leads to all the other action, does have a little bit of trauma, animal trauma. So you probably can pretty much discern, if you want to fast forward that, what happens and why Jim Craig ends up what he ends up doing. But I always wanted to be Jessica. And in the conversation with K-Girl Knits, I was like, I have been waiting for someone to design the Man from Snowy River knitwear collection. And she kind of passed that back to me, and I was like, God, I don't know if I could design a knitwear collection. But, and I thought about it for a brief moment, and then I was like, no, I'm not a designer. So I need to find a designer, and then a mill, and I need to design a specific set of yarns for that knitwear collection. So if anybody out there, Australia-based, New Zealand-based designers and farms want to come together and create a kit with a project bag with Clancy and Jim Craig on it, call me up. It's kind of like the Outlander for me of my childhood, because I probably would say, aside from Robert Redford, growing up, that though, like, I was a Jim Craig girl as a young girl, and then as I've gotten older and watched it, I'm probably more of a Clancy gal. So winter girl to gal, and they were like my go-to guys. So I would highly recommend The Man from Snowy River. It's a Walt Disney film from the 80s, probably. Great scene with mountain horses and riders, and I think it's set in the late 1800s, maybe the early 1900s in Australia. So thank you so much, K-Girl Knits, for bringing that out and onto the boards. I also wanted to welcome Crafty Cabby. She tends to knit with bright wool, but she has been admiring our gray wool. So well done. Perhaps you need to flash some of your bright stash so that there's something out there on our boards to balance myself out. So again, thank you for all the connections and comments and attention to the Instagram photos. They do not go unnoticed, and they're very much appreciated. So thank you so much. I'm going to go right to works in progress. I have a little Textiles in Time today and a book review, but I don't have a lot to tell you about progress. I have a lot to tell you about works, but not a lot to tell you about progress. I am going to throw into this a potential progress, also known as what, NAP, Needle Adjacent Project. It shouldn't be. I'll start with that one because it's kind of new. I'm planning to participate in Sarah Pomegranate, who is the host of Yarns at Yin Hu, a knit-along that she is sponsoring, hosting, supporting, and it is the asymmetric cowl. So your pattern needs to be asymmetrical in some way. It might be in its shape. I'm going to be doing the wave cowl, the mixed wave cowl by Sybil R. I was going to bring it up here. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. I'm using some yarn I got at Maryland Sheep and Wool and a little bit of deep stash, special deep stash. So the mixed wave cowl is a cowl. It's knit, I believe, flat, but I haven't really read through the pattern yet. It's a little bit out there for me, so Thanks, Sarah, for making me push my traditional classic boundaries. It is, it's asymmetrical in its color work, not necessarily in its shape. So let me see if I can bring it up here for you. I have everything else prepared. My history lesson. The yarn is 13 Mile Farm. They're out of Montana. They're a predator-friendly organic yarn, and I don't know if you can see that, but they have a very interesting description of their yarn, and I thought that I would give that to you because it's very informative about their whole process. So they say that the mill celebrates the diversity of what grass can grow and what people can create close to home. Our solar hot water system, semi-worsted spinning on small-scale machinery, and plant-based hand dyeing are consistent with the land and flock management outside. In an era when fossil fuels are diminishing and vulnerable, water is scarce and manure is precious, our small mill is an experiment to assert that decentralized industry may have a future. Your creations with our Montana fibers are part of that work in progress. So I definitely would consider this knitting with the heart and soul of my craft. And I love this yarn. It has the feel of a Rami or Cooksworth, and rugged, resilient, comforting yarns. Oops, that's the wrong place. I don't want to be there. I'm also using yarn from Cooksworth sheep from Hatchtown Farm, which is a local to me yarn. And she vended at my retreat last year. I have a lot of yarn from them. Her yarns are gorgeous and come in an array of silvers. I'm going to try and... I stopped recording. I hit the wrong button. But I'm just going to keep going. So there it is. I don't know if it's being blown out or what's happening to it. And then this is... Oh, don't look at that. This is the Sage. And this is the Midnight Lake. So... see, I'm just going to keep that as a placeholder, so you don't have to look at me in full blown. And then this is the mixed wave cowl. Hi. See if I can bring it up faster than that. So I'm sorry for the lag. Probably should go back a little bit. Thanks for your patience and technical nightmare. So I don't know, we're going to come in again. This may just be a recipe for a ridiculous disaster. Can you see that? That's the cowl. If you want more information, you certainly can go to good old Ravelry. Are you getting sick yet? And you can potentially tell that there's three colors. There's kind of a main background color, the wave. The main background is going to be the Midnight Lake, the wave is going to be the Sage, and then the wave is going to be, the Sage is going to be outlined with the silver gray. I can't wait to start working on it. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Sarah, why are you casting on another project when you haven't finished your nephew's stocking yet? Speaking of which, I'm knitting a stocking. Pains me to take it out. I've done a number of rows on it. This is from the New Family Portrait Collection by Doreen Giardino. I'm knitting it on a 3.75, which is a US 5 with stone hedge fibers. And I know it's still looking big, so I don't like to look at it. It's massive. I have started the heel gusset right here, which you may or may not be able to see. That is in my, and I've been thinking about this a lot, Highlands on the Fly 2013 retreat bag by Bling Your String, who is coming back this year for the 2014 retreat vending. I'm busy gearing up for that and gathering door prizes and goodie bag elements. And also, we still have space available, and I have a few people who are looking for that opportunity. So I got to get that organized. I've worked on the good no. I'm not going to necessarily bring it out. It's a bit awkward in its state. So right now, it's constructed in such a way that you knit up the plackets here, and they go all the way around. And I finished this side's placket, and I have to do this side. So they meet in the back, and you seam them together, and then I've got to stitch them along the shoulder. So that I'm doing out of Northern Solstice alpaca, which I got at the Highlands on the Fly last year. It's a 10% bamboo, 90%, I had to do that in my head, it took me a minute, 90% alpaca fawn colored yarn. I am going crazy with my Vedbeck shawl by Karina Westerman, who we can talk a little bit more about in another segment. But her shawl, the Vedbeck shawl, is currently on a discount for Fibertrek viewers. I'm not sure if it's extended. We did have it for last week. It is Textiles in Time. It's the coupon code, and you get 20% off the pattern. So if you were even had a small inkling of thinking of knitting this, then off you go. You should totally do it. I am rocking it out, as are a number of other people who are participating in our kind of serendipitous KAL knit along. There are some gorgeous yarn choices there. There will be an assortment of possible inspirations. So if you're looking for subtle heathered colors, if you're looking for natural colors, if you're looking for hand spun options, those are all represented in the knit along thread. I'm doing mine out of Island Wool Company, the Snalden yarn, which is a Falkland Faroese blend. This is their 4-ply, which would be similar to fingering weight. I won't wax on about how much I love this yarn because I've done it for, I don't know, 3 episodes now, and I just continually use the same adjectives. But I can't say enough good things about my experience with this yarn and how I feel it is exemplified in this pattern. So yeah, if you have any inclination, you can come on over and join the Serendipitous KAL. So that is, I'm cruising through that, which is what I should not be knitting on. I should be knitting on the stocking, the shoulds. And I think that's it. Let me check my notes. That's why I write them. Spend so much time with them. I have no spinning. And I guess, I wanted to tell you, the 13-mile farm yarn is 100 grams, it's 250 yards. It is a recommended gauge of 4 stitches to the inch on a size 8. The pattern I'm using calls for a DK weight, but I'm just going to move forward with it. And I know that I did mention it when I was reading the tag that it's plant dyed. They're both plant dyed, and that's going to be a running theme for our Textiles in Time. So I thought that was well planned, or not well planned. So yeah, so their yarns are beautiful, and they have a number of colors on their website. Turn the page. I'm going to go, I have no spinning. I have spinning prepared to spin, just not spinning it. And I need to move my wheel back over to where it was, which was next to the couch. I was getting a ton of spinning done when I was there, and I've since moved it. I put it away, and it just doesn't work to get it out in the evening. I just tend to pick up my knitting, so I need to move that over and see what I can get done on a couple of my fleeces. Acquisitions and discoveries. I went on a Fibertrek shoot this weekend. This is all going to kind of bleed together a little bit. And I typically don't walk away from a shoot without a purchase. It's a great way to expand my local stash, and all of the yarns have stories. And I also think it's just a great way to support the people who have chosen to donate their time or give up some time, valuable time, to work with Tyler and I on potentially a dream. So we were at Long Plains Alpaca last Saturday. This was a great shoot. Tyler was so pleased. It was overcast, so it was great lighting. We worked with Marcia McDonald, and we also worked with a friend that was staying with her at her house, who was from upstate New York, named Sasha, and he did some filming for us. I have the footage, and I have to watch it. I just have been a little bit behind on what I've been doing on the computer. So he did a kind of behind the scenes look at Fiber Trek. What does Tyler do? What does that whole day kind of look like, a shoot day look like? And we had so much fun with him, and he was really committed to getting good footage and making it look interesting. And he's a professional artist and had a great eye for putting together a story and a picture. So we really appreciated that kind of impromptu partner in crime. We spent the day looking at natural dyeing techniques. I got to collect dye stuffs with Marcia, wild dye stuffs, which is called wildcraft, when you collect from native sources or indigenous sources that are not cultivated. And we did a goldenrod dye bath, we did a marigold dye bath, and we did a mixed dye bath of sunflowers and black-eyed Susans, which I can't remember the Latin names of. And Tyler was really fascinated with the idea of filming a process, like a color process, that I could be involved in. So there's a lot of opportunity for me in that shoot. We had a really good time. It was very laid back, and it was one of our shorter shoots. So I walked away with 3 skeins of Long Plains alpaca from her alpacas. She has shifted her experience with the farm. It used to be primarily for alpaca breeding, but now she's focusing more on the yarn and focusing on natural dyeing. So I brought home this gorgeous skein, which is goldenrod over-dyed with indigo, and it gives you that gorgeous green. I'm unsure of what she used for a mordant. A mordant is a substance that's put on the wool to create a bond for the pigment in the dye to bond to. I kind of talked about that a little bit. I'm not a chemistry major, so in order for this color to bond to the molecules of the wool, it needs something to bond to hold that color, and that's called a mordant. Mordant means to bite. It comes from the word to bite, the French word to bite, and often you'll hear dyers talk about a strike. So when you put your yarn, your mordant and yarn into a dye bath, you will see that color immediately adhere, and it strikes it. You also may hear the word exhaust a dye bath, and that means to get all of that pigment, all of those pigment molecules out of the dye bath and onto the yarn, which potentially could look absolutely clear when you're done with the dye bath, because all of the pigment has bonded to your material. So, indigo and goldenrod. And then, I know you're like, that's brown, Sarah. This is a brown or fawn colored, I'm not sure, there's so many colors in the alpaca family, but brown being the best descriptor, with a madder overdye, which gives it a beautiful rusty red. And I thought a shawl out of these two. I think I had these same 2 colors in Green Mountain Spinnery mountain mohair. But I love these together, and I think a beautiful 2-tone shawl. If you have any ideas what might work for that, let me know. This is a sport weight, and it's about 250 yards at each. And then for Morgan, I brought home this natural alpaca, just for her collection. I don't think she has any alpaca, so I thought that would be a nice addition to her apartment. So I know there was a little bit of a Textiles in 10 foreshadowing there. Natural dyeing is a really interesting, it has a very interesting history, and it is an interesting process because there's so many elements through which you can connect with your surroundings, whether you wildcraft or you garden. So there's an outdoor component, just like shepherding. There is a stronger or deeper connection with the product than just, oh, I got this yarn and I'm knitting this beautiful shawl. So it's kind of another layer to add to a skill set if you are a spinner or a shepherdess and you create, you cultivate lambs. You're cultivating a specific type of wool in your husbandry. So it's just one more layer to the process. That's very thoughtful. So I know we talked about indigo last time on Textiles in Time, and I had picked one dye. That dye in particular had very strong, like I said last time, political attributes, religious attributes that drove it into the forefront of cultivation. But even before there was spinning and weaving, people were using dye pigments to color themselves, to color their pots. So it's a tradition, dyeing or use of color is a tradition beyond just making sure your clothing had color. We know that the Picts used woad to dye their skin. We know that there was a cosmetic market in the Mediterranean, the Egyptians, and used alkanut root and coal to color their face and exemplify what they thought was beautiful. Chamomile and henna was used to dye hair. So color has a long-standing presence even before it shifts to fabric and the expression in fabric. One of the things that was really interesting, I used the book, I own a couple of books, as I have done some natural dyeing in my past, is A Weaver's Garden by Rita Buchanan. And through this book, I just gained a little bit of insight I thought I'd share with you. One of the things that I often think about, even in my study of medicinal herbs and medicinal plants and preparations for those items, is, of course, how people came to understand these concepts, these technologies, and how they've evolved. She points out in here that the Egyptians used alum minerals as mordant, and I'm thinking to myself, so, when we think about Egyptians, we're thinking about, 3,000, 5,000 years ago. This technology is present. And she talks a little bit about how everyday activities everyday activities led to understanding of these greater technologies like dyeing. So for example, the Egyptians using alum minerals as mordant for their cloth probably evolved from the fact that they laundered their clothing using natron salts, and as they did that, maybe they grew to understand the concept that the laundering salts helped the color to adhere better. Boom. So now you've got a skill set, right? Now you've got a process or a technology. It was established as a skilled craft in the ancient civilizations of the Mediterranean. The Phoenicians, the Egyptians, the Greeks, also in the Caucasus and Persia. They developed very vivid colors for wool and silk, of course, if you're familiar with those traditions and their weaving traditions, their rug traditions. India and Southeast Asia mastered the art of cotton and bright colors and printing color on woven fabrics with resist dyeing. So there was a number of technologies just within dyeing. There was different ways to apply dye and batik and gain a fabric, whether you use cotton, silk, or wool. All of them have a different attribute that needs to be considered when mordanting and dyeing and dye stuffs to be used. So, the period of time that we're talking about for this skilled craft is about 3000 BCE or before Common Era or before Christ to about 100 BCE or BC. And it's going to encompass the Greeks, the Egyptians, the Romans, Mesopotamia, and that Fertile Crescent, Indus Valley, and Persia. Obviously, my knowledge of the Americas is a little less clear, but safe to assume our ancient civilizations in South America and Central America, as well as in North America, would be on a similar track with their dye stuffs because they also had fiber traditions. She also points out in here, in the Middle Ages, as things began to be organized, the dyeing craft was organized into guilds and apprenticeships, master dyers, and even had more of a stronger political bent, as we indicated with the indigo being imported and driving out woad, and the woad growers, 7 o'clock. I'm early this time. So the Middle Ages, you're looking at between 100 AD and late 1400, which is going to include Byzantium, Charlemagne, the Hagia Sophia, those types of elements. And again, progressing in the other parts of the world similar. She didn't talk at all about kind of Asia in general. She talked about Southeast Asia, but of course the Chinese and their silks and their capabilities with color and dyeing there, and their chemistry. The 19th century, we see synthetic dyes evolve, and of course that's a big drop-off for the natural dyeing. That skill and probably that whole layer of society is shifted. People have not just used plants in their past, but they've also used minerals, shellfish and insects, as well as lichens. So I think a lot of people tend to look at plant parts, roots, leaves, twigs, etc. But really you can dye with and use minerals such as malachite, lapis lazuli. You may be familiar with cochineal, which is an insect that is dried and ground up for a dye. And some people may be familiar with lichens, which are kind of a fungal family type of plant. It's not really a plant because it's a fungus. It's a lichen. But they are slow growing, and one interesting thing she pointed out in here was that the Harris tweeds from Scotland were dyed with these lichens, and specifically a lichen called crotal. And this lichen, like some other lichens, releases a very pleasant smell when it's steeped and used for dyeing, and so the Harris tweed had a very pleasant smell. Typically you're going to get yellows and golds and browns from lichen, but when paired, as we will talk about, with other minerals, ammonia and oxygen, ammonia and oxygen, you can get purples, magentas, and reds. So that's just a little hello there about natural dyeing, and just to whet your appetite a bit, and maybe some people had expressed interest in maybe exploring this themselves. The Weaver's Garden by Rita Buchanan is very helpful. It's growing plants for natural dyeing and fibers. She talks a lot about different fibers in here, dyes from plants, how to prepare your dye bath, and she talks about the history of that. It doesn't have a lot of pictures, it's a lot of writing, but it's instructional. And I've used this to dye with plants. So she has recipes in here, how much mordant per pound of wool, etc. And it is a Dover publication, and I would highly recommend it. Who knows what this retails for now, but I got it for $4.47. The other one, which is a really nice complementary book to this one, and it's a little bit more helpful in identifying a plan for your yarn and colors for your yarn and ingredients for the colors that you want, is her other book, A Dyer's Garden. And it also tells you in here how to grow plants, measuring mordants for wool, silk, and other protein fibers. So she has a very she has a very comprehensive description of planning a dye garden. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that you're going to go out and become this master dyer, but she has a plan on how to do that here. She also has spacing and yield of dye plants. So, for example, 4 square feet of black-eyed Susans, you need 12 plants to dye 4 ounces of wool. So, and you need 4 square feet to dye 4 ounces of wool with black-eyed Susans. So she has some really helpful conversions. if you're getting serious, the basics of dyeing with plants, equipment, common mordants, etc., which may have some of the same information, but again, both have something to offer. So the one thing about this book, which is helpful, is she actually shows you on this side the different colors you'll get with different mordants. So for example, you can use a variety of alkaline minerals to, I don't know if these are the right words, but you can use a variety of mordants, chemicals, to bond color to wool. Some of them include tin, alum, iron. Those are the three I can think of. Some of them are more toxic than others, alum probably being the least toxic, chrome, and the one that you can basically pour out. Some of the others require a bit more mindfulness and insight when you're handling them. But what she does here is, for example, this is yellow bed straw, and these are the different colors you'll get with yellow bed straw, with chrome on wool, alum on wool, tin, and then alum on silk. So she has wool and silk on this side. I don't know if you can see that, but maybe if I come in a little bit. So you can see that gradient. She also has, so the rest of the book is all the possibilities. Weld, broom sedge, hops, bronze fennel, purple loosestrife, purple basil. All these are common. Sorry, that's very close. All of these are common and easily obtained dye stuffs, and even some of them were wild crafted. Wild crafting plants has a very tenuous history. Sometimes, for example, lichen are very slow growing, and in some states can be protected, so you have to harvest responsibly. I think somebody told me in the state of Maine, it's illegal to harvest cattails, but I don't think they have dye stuff. But anyway, I was talking to Rob about that the other day. It's also illegal to harvest cotton grass. So just be really educated about what is available for wildcraft in your area versus what you're going to need to buy or cultivate. Some of this stuff can even be bought already dried, cultivated. I know that Mountain Rose Herbs in California has coreopsis, calendula, madder root. You can buy logwood, of course. There's some dye kits, but if you're looking to, goldenrod being a great option, onion skins, those are all pretty easily harvested and obtained dye stuffs that you can practice with and get some beautiful colors. So this book is published by Interweave Press. It is A Dyer's Gardens, From Plant to Pot, Growing Dyes for Natural Fibers by Rita Buchanan. So if you're interested in those two. I have another one which I forgot to grab, but I have found these are just great introductory, a lot of visual and a lot of explanation. So, did I cover everything? Did I cover the KL? Oh, and those of you who are expecting prizes, I'm moving into a fun farewell transition. Those of you that are expecting prizes, I have picked up all the postage necessary. I had to buy postage envelopes for an overseas package, and just in general, because the brooches are a little bit heavier, so I didn't think they would fit right in an envelope. And I also have another prize to send out, shamedly so. So those are going to go out pretty soon. I work Saturdays, and then I have Sunday off. And then typically on Monday, I don't want to leave the house on my weekends. So I'm a little bit bound that way. But I am getting ready to finish my job in a week and a half, and I'm very excited about it. I'm starting a second master's program at the University of Maine, Orono in speech language pathology. Classes start after Labor Day. So I will be shifting a number of things in my life. One of them potentially being the podcast release date, which I've never been like real strict about, been a little bit squirrely, but I think I may have to start maybe releasing on Sundays, filming on Fridays or Saturdays and releasing on Sundays. But stay tuned. So anyway, the whole point of that story was to tell you that I'm going to send out the prizes next week. So I have everything to go. So those of you who have been waiting, thank you, they will be coming. With that, I'm going to bid you, the second time, a fond farewell. If you had a chance and you'd like to join the Ravelry group, please feel free to come on over. We are a somewhat chatty group, and we are sitting about 160 members, which is no small feat for a couple weeks out there as a podcast. I am also now on iTunes. I don't know how much luck that's going. I'm getting hungry. I haven't eaten my dinner yet. I don't know how well that's going. I've been watching the couple episodes that are up there. I don't have all my episodes up there because I just haven't taken the time, and I don't know if I have the gigabyte or the memory storage on Hipcast, which is where I'm hosting the podcast. But hopefully from this point on, everything will go up and go to iTunes. If you feeling generous, you can certainly leave me an iTunes review and rating. Will not go unnoticed and will be very much appreciated. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, please feel free. We seem to have a lot of great stories. Diana Gabaldon, we've got Nancy Snowy River, we've got people who farm beautiful gray sheep, we've got people living all over the world, so please feel free to throw your story in there as well. I think Fern is telling me it's time to go. Anyway, I'll see you next week. Thanks.